S.H.Figuarts Dragon Ball Z Battle Clothes Krillin was released on the 25th of October as a Premium Bandai Web exclusive and retails for 6,800 yen or $60 if you pre-ordered him through Premium Bandai US. This is the 5th figure to be released in a second wave inspired by the Namek Frieza Saga, with second form and third form Frieza to follow early next year, rounding off all 7 characters in the roster. Battle Clothes Krillen was made available to both Premium Bandai Japan and Premium Bandai US and received Tamashi's same time worldwide release schedule. However, it does look like that some areas in the US have in fact got him ahead of schedule due to shipping logistics or whatever. But if you pre-ordered Krillen through either of those websites, I'd expect him to arrive at your doorstep anytime soon, if not already, and I'm pretty sure already. First off, let's get the obvious out of the way. Saiyan Armor Krillen is shorter than Krillen 2.0 and the heads are different sizes, so you can't do any mixing or matching. I mean, I guess you could if you really wanted to, but the scale is just way off and just doesn't look right on either body. Is it a little disappointing? Yes. Would I have liked to be able to use these heads on that body and those heads on this body? Yeah, sure, but it is what it is. So let's just try to move past that because there are still some pretty good things going for this figure. More so in the aesthetics department more than anything, but we'll get into that a little later in the video. I mean, the difference in size could even be a good thing depending on how you look at it, and I'm a pretty positive kind of guy, so I tend to look at the brighter side of things. But just in case you haven't seen any comparisons on Instagram already, I just wanted to get this out right off the bat before we dive a little deeper into the figure itself. So since we're on the topic of scaling, I am by no means an expert, but I could definitely give you a general idea of who and how tall a character should be when stacked up against another based on my vague memory of watching this many years ago. And yeah, you can't get more accurate than that, can you? But in all seriousness, all of you know by now that the Namek Frieza Saga still is, to this day, my favorite arc in Dragon Ball Z, and I probably watch it and revisit it about once a year, so I guess, you know, whatever that's worth. But this to me looks right. I think we've got a pretty handsome looking display going on here, and I'll bring in the rest of the Namek Saga gang at the end of the video, but Goku obviously is the tallest, and you know, you have Krillen, who should be somewhere around Frieza's height, but definitely taller than Gohan. I mean, sure, yeah, I guess you could find some reference from the manga or anime where the top of Krillen's head just reaches Frieza's shoulder or whatever, but in all honesty, I really don't care that much. As long as the overall height differences are somewhat accurate, I'm totally cool with this setup. So I talked about having a slightly different scale Krillen being a good thing at the start of the video. Well, you know, I guess good might be a bit generous, but I totally understand the need for consistency in a line. And I'm definitely not going to argue with you if you think both Krillen 2.0 and Saiyan Armor Krillen should be the same height. Totally get it. In saying that, the optimist in me is telling me that Tamashi are going deep with this line. It's not just a case of giving us characters we never thought we'd get in this line, say 5 years ago anymore. Tamashi are giving us variations on the same character based on specific eras, inspired by different art styles. And, you know, if that's not going deep with the line, then I don't know what is. And I know it's not just me being positive because you can clearly see the design of the head sculpts and the proportions, that this figure is very much inspired by the artwork from, you know, that period of Dragon Ball Z where, you know, not everyone was ripped to shreds, and the more defined, sharper lines we see later in the Android Cell arcs, you know, aren't quite there yet, but slowly starting to creep in. Krillen is a little stockier, a little wider, the faces are a little rounder, the lines are a little softer, and I think it's reflected really well in figure form. Again, he looks great when paired with Saiyan Armor Gohan, and just like Gohan shares a very similar body style and setup. You've got the classic white gloves and boots, the shoulder pads on hinges, the waist pads on hinges, the blue areas on Krillen's chest and torso. Also have a shinier, glossier finish, which, you know, gives a nice little contrast to the rest of the matte body. In terms of paintwork, you're looking at mostly molded colored plastics as usual, with the white trim on the armor, the black on his thighs, and forearms being the only paint there. I think they've also matched the skin tones on his chest there pretty well with the rest of his body, so everything is looking pretty clean. Again, I'm really digging the head sculpts on Krillen here. They are vastly different to the style of heads we got from Krillen 2.0. And while I did say I was a little bit disappointed that part swapping isn't an option here, I think in the end, I'm okay with it. I see what Tamashii are doing here, and if it means that we're going to get more art style specific figures rather than generic looking head sculpts we've gotten in the past, then I'm all for it. We do get 5 head sculpts in total, and they all came out looking really great, although some of the heads are a little bit shiny. They're not as matte as the body, so that is something to note. The printing here is nice, clean, and crisp, and I'm really glad that they included this head here with the battle damage part, since we are getting second form Frieza next year. You can even see the sweat on the side of Krillin's head there. All the details in the mouth are nicely done. I mean, I'm sure Krillen isn't the most complicated head sculpt out there, but they did manage to capture the art style of a specific period of Dragon Ball Z, give us some iconic expressions straight out of the anime, and make it different enough from the previous version of Krillen they released earlier this year. And again, it is a little bit of a shame that some of the heads came out a little bit shinier than I would have liked, but yeah, other than that, the heads do look great. I don't know, I might go over the heads with maybe a little bit of dull coat, but yeah, they are a little bit shiny. So for quality control, other than a few squeaky tight joints around the forearms and mid-torso, everything else seems to be holding up. Paintwork is on point. I mean, the very little paint work that there is anyway. All the face printing on all 5 head sculpts are spot on. So I mean, yeah, really nothing to complain about. I haven't seen or heard any problems as yet from anybody else online. Fingers crossed, as always, that this is widespread across the board. Alright, so let's take a look at Krillin's articulation, but I guess before that, the biggest issue I have with this figure is how it balances and how difficult it is to get Krillen to stand up straight. Believe it or not, yeah, I know he's standing up straight right now, but it takes quite a lot to get him to balance and to, stand him up straight. It's like, alright, fine, yeah, he's standing straight and he doesn't have any problems right now. Thanks, Krillen, thanks for making me look bad on camera. But trust me, I had to kind of straighten out the legs, I had to really bend those feet, and the main reason, well, one of the main reasons is because Krillen is actually kind of top heavy. The torso and the head are quite weighty. They do have quite a bit of a, they do have quite a bit of heft to them. There's a bit of plastic to it, and when you compare them to the legs, which are quite light, his center of gravity is quite high, coupled with the crappy dumbbell ankle joints, which I absolutely hate. It just makes Krillen really hard to balance, and it's a shame because it's such a fantastic looking figure. It's such a fantastic representation of the character. That I know a lot of collectors, including myself, have wanted for a very long time, and it kind of, it adds that little bit to your Namek Frieza Saga display, having an armored Krillen. But he's got all the typical 2.0 Saiyan armor articulation, again, the terrible ankle joints, and the other bit of articulation, which is a little bit disappointing, which I'll show you off in a minute, is the torso. He doesn't get much ab crunch when you compare him to, say, like a Vegeta. But yeah, it's just a shame. I really hate to say this, but he's not the most fun to pose. In fact, it can be kind of frustrating, especially with these ankles when you try to get him in a wide stance, or you got him posed up doing some kind of like fighting pose. It's just really hard to get him to stand. And again, it really is a shame. I really hate to say it, and especially with second form Frieza coming out, I really want to pose Krillen, with those figures and have him, fighting, or have him, doing some kind of dynamic pose with those other figures. And yeah, it's just a real shame that I didn't have as much fun as I did with, you know, the other figures in the line with Krillen. But you know, that's enough of me rambling. Let's get on with the articulation. So Krillen does look up quite a bit, so he does have really good, you know, head articulation, which is great. Again, the neck joint is an independent piece, so that helps as well. And he does look down, you know, relatively well. So that's pretty good. He does get his side-to-side rotation, and you do get some pretty good tilt as well, which has a lot of character. I always like the tilt. That's great. So you have the articulated hinges. So the hinges on the shoulder pads, they are articulated and they do get out of the way. And I have this, the chest plate that has kind of the indents there. So he can move, so Krillen can move his shoulders in really, really well, like really far forward, which is great. But again, you're going to get that kind of, you know, awkward, I guess, gap in the shoulders there with the shoulder pads, which is unavoidable. You know, we've seen this time and time again with characters who has this articulation setup. Again, if you want to move Krillin's arm 360, you got to move those shoulder pads out of the way, and he does move them 360. If I can, it's a little bit stiff, but he does get 360 there. And you do have upper bicep swivel, a little squeaky, a little tight, and he's got the single jointed elbow, gets 90 degrees, kind of similar to Battle Clothes Gohan. You have your swivels at the wrist, and you got your typical hinges as well. So standard stuff. So here we are with the ab articulation, the upper torso and the lower torso. They are two separate pieces, and you can extend it up, which is good, but you can't get it going forward too much, and that's what'll happen. So unfortunately, that's as far as you can get with Krillen without, you know, snapping him in half. And I do not recommend that. I've got to be a little bit more gentle with my figures, but you know, I got to show you guys so, you know, you don't break your figures. So that's as much as he gets in terms of ab articulation. And coupled with the waist joint there, it's not much. It is an odd ball joint, so you do get side to side, but again, it is pretty stiff, and most of your swivel will come at the waist there. The waist pads here are on hinges as well, just like the shoulder pads, and he does have your typical 2.0 leg articulation. It's all right. Splits come out that far, but you're going to get your full 180 going backward and forward. You have your upper thigh swivel, your double jointed knees, which is better than 90. It's pretty good. And then we get to the ankles. Again, you know, there isn't much room for any, you know, leeway. It goes down about that much. It doesn't go up at all. And, you know, you kind of really have to push it all the way up to get Krillen to stand up straight. So, you know, obviously be careful with it, but at the same time, you got to push it all the way up just to even get him to stand up straight. So that's not fun. And he's got, you know, like no ankle tilt at all. And you have your, you know, your toe hinge there. So, I mean, like the upper half is okay. The ab articulation is pretty much non-existent. The legs are good, but then you have, you know, the problems at the ankles. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. I know I don't sound the most enthusiastic. Again, this is a really good looking figure. I just wish it was a lot more fun to pose. See what I mean? There we go. We got him to stand up straight. Nope, he fell down. So, I mean, you can get him on a stand. You can get him in flight poses. And if you're okay with that, then yeah. But for me, I like to pose my figures around. I like, you know, to get my figures into dynamic poses. I wanted him to hold the Kienzan maybe, but that's not going to happen without a stand. And there he is. He's just going to topple over. But that's the articulation. Yeah, that's all I can say. So jumping straight into the hands, Krillen comes with a set of fists, a pair of Kamehameha hands or generic energy blast hands, some closed finger open palm blast hands or salute hands or even flight hands, and some open palm hands to hold the 1-star glowing Namekian Dragon Ball. Again, we've all seen this before. It's the glowing Namekian Dragon Ball. It's included with every one of these figures from the wave. But here it is, the 1-star one anyway. And yeah, we have 2 more left to go. For heads, we get 5 in total. Love the way they turned out. Face printing is crispy. Looks exactly like how Krillen was portrayed back in that era. But again, just a little bit glossy on some of the domes. Krillen, like Battle Clothes Gohan, comes with an interchangeable chest plate that allows for better inner arm movement, as the chest plate it comes packaged with, or the standard chest plate, makes the armor more streamlined but kind of hinders the inner arm articulation if you're going for those Kamehameha or blast poses. So you can swap it out to give Krillen better articulation moving his arms in. Last but not least, we get the battle damage parts like Ginyu that just pop off, and it's just a matter of swapping them out at the front and at the back. I've already done the back, but it's pretty easy stuff, and again, will look awesome when paired up with second form Frieza, which I need right now. So I know I did sound a little bit negative a minute ago, which I hate because 1, I never buy a figure I know I'm not going to enjoy, and 2, if you work at it and give it some time, you can eventually get Krillen to stand up and in some pretty decent poses. In saying that, the dumbbell ankle joints can die and should never be on any other figure in this line going forward. But I guess it was when I was lining up all the figures together like this, having 2 waves of my favorite arc in Dragon Ball Z, I guess it just really put a huge smile on my face. Yes, Krillen isn't the most fun to pose, and again, it's a big part of what I'm looking for in a figure, but I can't deny the fact that Tamashii have faithfully captured Saiyan Armor Krillen in figure form, and come on, just look at this group shot, guys. It just makes me wish I had more display space so I could permanently display all of my figures out of their box, because wow, this is just too good. And can you imagine Purunga and Dende at the back there? I can't stay angry at Tamashii for giving a shitty ankle and torso articulation. Just don't do it again. But speaking objectively, like Battle Clothes Gohan, if you only need 1 Krillen in your collection, 2.0 is the way to go. It's a fantastic figure and will probably stay in my top 10 when I come back around to updating my list at the end of December. This guy here is for those who love the Namek Frieza Saga, or I guess, Krillen as a character in general. And I'm always down for more versions of, pretty much any character from Dragon Ball, especially the ones, we don't see too often. But what I'm going to take away from this release is that Tamashii are going all out. They are acknowledging that not all Krillens look or are drawn the same, and I honestly hope they continue to do this with every other character, whether it be Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, or GT, art specific, period specific, yes please. As long as there is consistency within those, subcategories as well, I'm totally cool with it. Alright guys, that's all from me. Hope you enjoyed the review, and thank you always for watching. I'll be back very soon with the new Figuarts Standard Goku. Really excited to put that together. I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun these couple of days just, building this model kit. But yeah, it's out here in Japan. So hopefully I'll have a review up for you guys and a comparison with the older one pretty soon. So till then, take good care of yourselves out there, be good to your mums, and as always, yoroshiku.